Hello, welcome to Solve by Complete the Square. Going to show you guys how to do complete the square. Hopefully you guys remember what to do from the previous, lessons that we had during school, but if you forgot, then don't worry, this is what the video is here for. And I know the complete the square we're going to do today is the harder one because it has the 4 in the front of the x squared, but yeah, I mean, the process is the same, right? You just got to deal with this number first before you can actually start the process, okay? So, how do we get rid of that 4? Does anybody remember? Well, if you don't, then don't worry, because that's why I'm here making this video, so that you guys can remind yourselves what to do, and you guys have this video that you guys can watch anytime you guys need. So, how do we get rid of the 4? You basically just divide by 4, okay? And don't just divide him by 4. You got to divide everybody by 4, yeah? So, make sure you divide everybody by 4. All right, so when I divide by 4, I get x squared plus 4x. And unfortunately, yes, we have this ugly fraction that doesn't divide by 4 nicely, but hey, never said this problem was going to be that easy anyway, right? Okay, so the 67 over 4 is unfortunately not the number that's going to complete the square. What is the number that will do the trick? Well, the number that will work is going to be figured out when we run a test or a couple of tests on this middle number 4 that we have right here. So we're going to grab that number 4 in the middle, and we're going to run a couple of tests or do a couple of things so that we can actually find out what the number is. So it's not really a test, but it's a process that we're going to use to figure out the number that actually should sit right in this spot. Yeah, because 67 over 4 is definitely not the number. So grab our middle number, we cut it in half, we get 2. Okay, so that's the first thing we do. We cut that middle number in half. Then we get that result and we square it. And we get 4. So it doesn't look like it did that much, right? Because we got the exact same number that we were chopping in half in the first place. But if it's a different number other than 4, you're going to get a very different result. So yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, so this 67 over 4 is not the number we need sitting right here in this spot right next to 4x. So we're going to have to get rid of 67 over 4. So does anybody remember how that works? How do we make 67 over 4 go to the other side? Okay, and if you don't remember, don't worry. We're just going to subtract it. Subtract 67 over 4 on both sides. Okay, and then we got x squared plus 4x equals negative 67 over 4. Okay, so then we have that little space. So hopefully you guys leave a little space in this spot right here, because that's where the number that we just cut in half and squared is going to go and move right into. Okay, so we're going to grab this 4, we're going to put it right here. So you're going to, let me change the color back to purple. So add 4. Oops, how come it's not working? Oh, I got to go back to pen. That would be good. So put a positive 4 here. So the thing that students forget is they put it in this spot right next to the 4, but they forget to put it on the other side, and that's kind of a big deal. So make sure you do this on both sides. Just like above, we did negative 67 over 4 on both sides as well. Okay, make sure you guys do this on both sides as well, or positive 4, positive 4. Okay, then on this left side, we're going to do some factoring. Okay, the simple factoring, just like we did the other day, where what two numbers make 4 here, and do those same exact numbers that made the 4, add to make 4 here. So what numbers make 4 when I multiply? 1 and 4. Does that add to make 4 here though? No, 1 and 4 make 5. So what's another combination that makes 4? 2 and 2. So 2 and 2 makes 4 when I multiply. Does 2 and 2 make 4 when I add? Yes, it does. So we're going to use x plus 2 as our factors, yeah, to start this process or continue the process called complete the square. Okay, and then we're going to have to add these fractions. So unfortunately, they don't have the same denominator because this left side fraction has a 4, the right side fraction has a 1. So how do I make them match? What number do you think they're going to match at? Well, this is a 4, this is a 1, so simplest way is just to make them match at 4. So to make them match at 4, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4, because that's one of the simple rules that you guys learned back in the day of dealing with common denominators, right? To make them match, you got to make sure you multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. Otherwise, you're not going to get equivalent fractions. Okay? All right, so we got basically negative 67 over 4 plus 16 over 4. Okay? So let's clean up this left side because we have 2 of the same thing written twice. So just call this x plus 2 squared equals, and on the right side we got the same denominator now, So we're just going to go and combine negative 67 plus 16. So we're not going to change the bottom, right? When you combine fractions with adding and subtracting, bottom never changes. You just keep it a 4 as long as they match, right? The tops, you just listen to what it says. So negative 67 plus 16 is negative 51. Okay. All right, so complete the square is done. So now we have to just solve. So to get it to be solved, you have to get the x by itself. So unfortunately, it has a positive 2 and it has a power of 2. That's kind of in the way, right? We want to get the x by itself. So these two 2's are kind of like in the way. They're jamming things up. So which one do we get rid of first? Do we get rid of the positive 2 or do we get rid of the square 2? Hopefully you all said the square 2. And if you did, you guys know that the only way to do that is to square root both sides. Okay, so we're going to square root both sides. And if you were in my class, you guys are paying attention. What was the thing that I said to do right after you do square root both sides? Do you remember? Well, if you forgot, that's why I'm here. We're going to put a plus minus right outside this square root right there. Okay, so don't forget about that. Okay, so now we're going to do square root of negative 51 over 4. So we're going to grab that negative 51 over 4, and we're going to start breaking it up into little pieces. So the negative sign, if you guys remember from the other video I did, right? I squared is known as negative 1. So the same can also be true. A negative can be known as I times I or I squared. So we're just going to do the opposite of what I said earlier in a previous video. So yeah, I'll write it on the side just in case you forgot. I squared is known as negative 1. And there's my negative. So I'm going to replace that negative with II. So I'm going to make this square root symbol a little bit bigger, just like that one. And I'm going to turn the negative sign into II. Yeah. And the 51, I'm going to call that 3 times 17. And the 4, I'm going to call that 2 times 2. Okay. All right, so then I want to circle things that match. So what matches? The i's match and the 2's match. And because they match, they're allowed to go outside. Okay. So we're going to make a fraction on the outside. We're going to put an I on the top because that's where it was when I was inside the fraction. It was on the top. I'm going to put a 2 on the bottom because that's where the 2 was when it was inside the fraction, inside the square root. Okay. And 3 and 17, they don't match. Yeah, so they don't get circled, they don't get to go on the outside. So if they don't get to go on the outside, you just put them back together again, and you put them back inside that square root symbol. And when I put it back together again, it's 51. Okay, so I'm going to grab I root 51 over 2, and I'm going to replace this whole fraction, this whole square root right here. So let's start cleaning this thing up. So left side becomes x plus 2. Oops, wrong color. Let me go back to the other color, not purple. So x plus 2 on the left side equals plus or minus, and I root 51 over 2. Okay? All right, so let me get some more space here. Okay, so one last thing we have to do is we want to get this 2 on the left side. So how do I get this positive 2 that's on the left side to go to the right side instead? Well, you just subtract 2. So subtract 2 on both sides. Okay, so I get x equals, and I know the negative 2 when I put it on this right side, it was on the right hand side of the fraction, but you kind of want to put this imaginary number in the back. Yeah, keep your real number in the front. So you got negative 2 in the front, plus or minus, and different math teachers across the country and the world, they'll have different takes on where to put this I. Some want to put the Y on the side here. Some will be fine with putting the I right here. Yeah, I tell my students I'm fine with it like this. Okay, but different teachers might tell you guys to do different things. So just adapt to what they want. Okay, and that's the final answer for this problem. Okay, but if you notice when I gave you guys the answers, yeah, since a website made the answers, they might not have left their answer like this though. They might have put it all as one big fraction. So if they did, how do I put these two things together? Well, you just got to make sure they have the same denominator, and once they have the same denominator, you can make one big fraction. Okay, so I'll show you guys how that's done. So we have x equals negative 2 over 1 plus or minus I root 51 over 2. So let me just get this straight in case you guys are getting confused. This answer right here on the left side is perfectly fine for me. Yeah, but if you wanna, if some teachers in the future are gonna want to have your answers as one fraction rather than 2, then this is how to put them back together again. So we make fractions out of both of them. then you want to make the same denominator on both fractions. So you go times by 2 on the left side, right? Because you want to have the same number on the bottom, which is 2. And then this becomes x equals -4 plus or minus I root 2, or I'm sorry, I root 51 rather, over 2. Okay. Once you have the same denominator, you can just combine them all to one giant fraction. So both answers are fine. Okay. Either answer is fine with me. All right. So good luck. Bye bye.